I worked 3 jobs to put my wife through medical school. The day she got her diploma, she handed me divorce papers. 7 years later, I'm a successful business owner. And she just walked into my office, not as a doctor, but as someone begging for help. Here's what happened next. You know that moment when you realize your entire life was built on a lie? Yeah, I'm living it. But let me take you back 7 years to when I thought I was building a future. My name is Garrett Hollis, and this is the story of how I gave everything to someone who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone. Picture this, a cramped 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like instant ramen and broken dreams. Medical textbooks stacked so high they could have been furniture. And there she was, Monica, my wife of 8 years, hunched over her laptop at 2 in the morning, memorizing drug interactions for her boards. I just walked in from my 3rd job of the day, and honestly, I was too exhausted to even take off my shoes. But I still made her coffee. Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You show up, even when you're running on empty. We met young. She was pre-med, full of fire and ambition. I was working in tech support, dreaming about starting my own company someday. We fell hard and fast, the kind of love where you genuinely believe you can conquer the world together. When she got accepted to medical school, I didn't even hesitate. We'll make it work, I told her. This is our dream. Notice I said our. That detail matters later. So I became a machine. 5 in the morning, I'd drag myself to the warehouse, loading trucks until my back screamed. By 1 in the afternoon, I'd shower in the gym locker room and head straight to tutoring high school kids in math and science. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was teaching calculus to teenagers while my own dreams gathered dust. Then, from 7 until midnight, sometimes later, I'd drive strangers around the city in my beat-up sedan that smelled like air freshener and desperation. Some nights I'd fall asleep at red lights. The honking behind me became my alarm clock. Monica's schedule was brutal too, don't get me wrong. Classes, rotations, studying, she barely had time to breathe. But here's the thing. Her struggle had a finish line. Mine felt endless. I'd come home to find her asleep on the couch, textbook open on her chest. And I'd cover her with a blanket before collapsing myself. Our conversations became transactional. Did you pay the electric bill? Can you pick up my prescription? I need you to be quiet. I have an exam tomorrow. The intimacy we once had evaporated like steam, replaced with this unspoken agreement that everything, including us, was on hold until she graduated. I kept telling myself it would be worth it. Every time my hands cramped from lifting boxes, every time a drunk passenger threw up in my back seat, every time I wanted to scream from exhaustion, I'd remember her promises. When I'm a doctor, baby, we'll have everything. I'll take care of you. I'll make this up to you. I believed her. God, I really believed her. I even took on credit card debt to cover her final year expenses because the loans weren't enough. $23,000 I didn't have, just so she could finish strong. Graduation day was coming, and I'd already planned a surprise celebration. I bought her a necklace I absolutely couldn't afford, a stethoscope charm in white gold. I thought it would symbolize everything we'd accomplished together. I had no idea she'd already planned my ending. The auditorium was packed with proud families, camera flashes going off like fireworks. I sat in the middle section, wearing the one decent suit I owned, watching Monica walk across that stage in her white coat. My eyes burned with tears, the good kind, or so I thought. This was it. The finish line we'd been sprinting toward for 5 years. I was so proud of her I could barely breathe. When they called her name, I stood up and cheered louder than anyone else in that room. That's my wife, I thought. We did it. After the ceremony, I watched her pose for photos with her cohort. That's when I first saw him, Dr. Richard Chen, her attending physician. Distinguished, successful, everything I wasn't. I noticed how his hand rested on her waist during the photo, how she leaned into him just a little too comfortably. Something twisted in my gut, but I pushed it down. Don't be paranoid, I told myself. You're just tired. Back at the apartment, I'd set up a small celebration. Cheap champagne, her favorite takeout, and that necklace wrapped in tissue paper because I couldn't afford proper wrapping. But when Monica walked in, there was no joy in her eyes. Just this cold, determined look I'd never seen before. "Garrett, we need to talk," she said, and my entire world tilted sideways. She pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it across our kitchen counter. The lawyer's seal was right there on the corner, official and final. Divorce papers. Already drawn up, already signed on her end. "What is this?" I heard myself say, my voice sounding far away. "Monica, what is this? Some kind of joke?" She wouldn't even look at me directly. "I've outgrown this marriage, Garrett. I'm not the same person I was when we started." Outgrown. Like I was a pair of jeans that didn't fit anymore. "Outgrown?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I put you through school. I worked 3 jobs. I gave up everything." She finally met my eyes then, and what I saw there was worse than anger. It was indifference. And I appreciate that. I really do. But I need someone on my level now, someone who understands my world. That's when the truth came spilling out. She'd been seeing Dr. Richard Chen for 8 months. 8 months! While I was driving drunk strangers around at midnight, while I was destroying my body in that warehouse, while I was tutoring kids and eating ramen for dinner, she was building a life with someone else. "He proposed last week," she said, showing me a ring that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. I said yes. Not physically. I'm not that guy, but something inside me shattered. "You were never here anyway," she shouted when I accused her of betrayal. "Richard understands my ambitions." I slammed my hand on the counter so hard, our coffee mugs jumped. "I was never here because I was paying for your ambitions." She actually flinched, and then her face changed. Cold. Calculating. "You're being unstable right now. This is exactly why this isn't working." 8. Then came the final knife. "It's my apartment, Garrett. My name on the lease. I paid for it with my residency stipend." She'd planned this. Every detail. I packed one bag in complete silence while she watched from the doorway. When I walked out into the rain that night, divorce papers tucked under my arm, I realized I didn't just lose my wife. I lost everything. I spent 3 months on my brother Kevin's couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering where everything went wrong. Depression doesn't announce itself. It just shows up one day and makes itself comfortable. I'd wake up at noon, shuffle to the bathroom, avoid looking at myself in the mirror, then spend the rest of the day watching whatever garbage was on TV. Kevin would come home from work and find me exactly where he'd left me that morning. He never judged, not out loud anyway, but I could see the worry in his eyes. The worst part? Social media. I know I should have deleted everything, but I couldn't stop torturing myself. Monica's feed became my personal hell. Engagement photos with Richard at some fancy restaurant, their couple's vacation to the Maldives, her in designer clothes at medical conferences, looking happy and successful, and so far removed from the woman who used to eat ramen with me at midnight. She posted this long gratitude message once. "So blessed for everyone who supported my journey." She tagged everyone, her professors, her friends, her colleagues. Everyone except me. It was like I'd been erased from her story completely. Then one night, Kevin had enough. He came home, turned off the TV, and just stared at me. "You gave her 5 years," he said. "Don't give her your whole life." Something about the way he said it cut through the fog. He was right. I'd already sacrificed 5 years building her dream. Was I really going to waste the rest of my life mourning it? I found my old notebooks buried in my bag, the ones with all my startup ideas from before medical school consumed our lives. There it was. Logistics software for small businesses. I'd mapped out the whole concept years ago. It's back when I was working at that warehouse and seeing firsthand how inefficient everything was. The idea was still good. Actually, it was better than good. So I started over. During the day, I went back to the warehouse, same company, same backbreaking work. But at night, I taught myself advanced coding through online courses. I lived on Kevin's couch for another year, but this time I had purpose. Every line of code I wrote felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. A year after the divorce, I launched the beta version of my software. Small warehouse operations loved it because it solved real problems I'd actually lived through. The growth was slow but steady. 2 years post-divorce, I landed my first major client contract. 3 years in, I had a small office and 2 employees. By year 4, I was actually making real money, the kind Monica and I used to dream about. Year 5 brought expansion, 30 employees, and industry recognition. By year 6, I was speaking at conferences, the ones Monica probably attended. Therapy helped too. Learning that my worth wasn't tied to what I could give someone else, that was revolutionary. I dated here and there, nothing serious. Mostly I focused on building something that couldn't be taken away from me. 7 years after that rainy night, I was CEO of a thriving tech company. Corner office, morning coffee, overlooking the city, respect for my peers. I'd actually done it. Not for her, not for us, for me. Then my assistant buzzed in. "Someone's here to see you. Says it's urgent." The door opened, and there she was. Monica. 7 years does things to a person. I'd seen it in myself, the confidence, the calm, the way I carried myself now. But Monica? 7 years had broken her. She stood in my doorway wearing clothes from a department store clearance rack, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Eyes that used to shine with ambition now hollowed out by something I recognized too well. Defeat. "Garrett," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's been a long time." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined over the years, running into her at a conference, seeing her name in a medical journal, maybe even her reaching out to apologize, I never pictured this. Her, in my office, looking like she'd been through a war and lost. I should have thrown her out. That's what Kevin would have told me to do. But curiosity got the better of me, or maybe it was something else. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. The irony wasn't lost on either of you, a successful man behind the desk, struggling woman in the supplicant's chair. How the tables had turned. Her story came out in broken pieces. She'd married Richard 6 months after our divorce. At first, it was everything she'd wanted: status, money, the respect that came with being a surgeon's wife. But Richard wasn't the man she thought he was. He was controlling, jealous whenever her career got attention. When she started making more money than him, he became worse. Much worse. She didn't use the word abuse, but I could read between the lines. Then it all collapsed. She'd filed a complaint against a hospital administrator for ethics violations. Turns out, the administrator was Richard's golfing buddy. She was blacklisted. Lost her job. The divorce from Richard left her drowning in legal debt, and her medical license was now under review because of allegations she swore were fabricated. "I can't find work anywhere," she said, hands trembling as she showed me eviction notices and credit card statements. "I'm living in my car, Garrett. Why come to me?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She looked up, and for a second I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with a decade ago. "Because you're the only person who ever truly cared about me," she whispered. The words hung in the air between us. "I cared about someone who doesn't exist anymore," I said coldly. She tried to explain it all away, the pressure, feeling trapped, Richard's manipulation. But I stopped her. "So when did it stop being your choice, Monica? When did you stop being responsible for your own actions?" She broke down then, shoulders shaking, tears streaming down her face. The old me would have rushed around the desk to comfort her. The new me just watched. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she finally said. "Just help. Alone. I'll pay you back, I promise." I almost laughed. "With what?" "You have nothing." She nodded miserably. "I know, but you're a good man, Garrett. Better than I ever deserved." There it was, the manipulation wrapped in truth. She wasn't wrong. I was a good man. But what did that mean in this moment? I asked Monica to wait in the lobby. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with this situation. My office suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. I paced back and forth, my mind racing between anger and something I didn't want to name. Compassion, maybe. Or worse, pity. I called Kevin. He answered on the second ring. "Don't be stupid," he said before I even finished explaining. "She burned you, Garrett. She left you with nothing, and now she wants a handout. Tell her to kick rocks." He wasn't wrong. The logical part of my brain screamed the same thing. But something else nagged at me, a question I couldn't shake. What if helping her is how I finally let go? I asked him. Silence on the other end. Then just don't be an idiot about it. I made another call, this one to a friend who worked in hospital administration across town. I needed to verify her story, needed to know if this was real or just another con. 20 minutes later, I had my answer. Everything Monica said was truth. The blacklisting, the suspended license, the legal nightmare. But my friend added something else. She could have settled with Richard for substantial alimony. Her lawyer advised it. She refused out of pride. So even in her downfall, Monica was still making choices that hurt her. Some things never changed. I called her back into my office. She walked in with this fragile hope in her eyes that made me feel both powerful and disgusted with myself. I'll help you, I said, and watched her face light up like sunrise, but not with money. The light dimmed. Confusion replaced hope. I'm offering you a job. Administrative assistant, entry level, modest salary, but it's honest work. You should have seen her face. I'm a doctor, Garrett. The entitlement in her voice, even broke and desperate, she still thought she was above certain work. No, I corrected her, my voice sharp. You're an unemployed medical school graduate with a suspended license. There's a difference. The power shift in that moment was seismic. She realized she had no cards to play, no leverage, nothing but her pride, and pride doesn't pay rent. You taught me something 7 years ago, I continued. You taught me that people aren't on your level or beneath it. They're just people. Maybe it's time you learned that lesson yourself. I watched her wrestle with it, her ego versus her survival. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll take the job. I wasn't done. One more thing. You'll attend therapy? It's a company benefit. Non-negotiable. She agreed, defeated but desperate enough to accept any lifeline. She turned to leave, probably thinking we were done. But I had one more card to play. I saw Richard last month, I said casually. She froze, her back still to me. Medical conference 1 sponsored. He's thriving, by the way. Still practicing. Still successful. I paused. Let it sink in. He told me everything, Monica. How you pursued him? How you planned leaving me. How you convinced him you were trapped in a dead-end marriage with a man who was holding you back? She turned slowly, tears already streaming down her face. You weren't a victim of ambition, I said quietly. You were a victim of your own character. 6 months passed like a strange dream. Monica showed up to work every single day early, actually. She stayed late, worked harder than anyone else in the office, never complained. My employees had no idea about our history. To them, she was just another team member trying to prove herself. And honestly, she was good at the job. Competent, detail-oriented, humble in a way I'd never seen from her before. The therapy was working. I could see it in the way she carried herself, the way she interacted with people. She was changing, genuinely changing. One evening, I called her into my office. The sun was setting through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. She walked in looking nervous, probably thinking this was the end, that I was finally going to fire her. Instead, I slid a folder across the desk. There's a medical tech startup looking for a consultant, I said. Someone with medical knowledge to help them develop healthcare software. It's not a doctor position, but it uses your expertise. Better pay than here, and it's a path back to your field. She stared at the folder like it might disappear if she touched it. Then the tears came. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice breaking. It was a fair question. I'd asked myself the same thing 100 times. Because I'm not helping you for revenge, I said simply. I'm helping you because that's who I am. You didn't change that about me? I destroyed you, she whispered. I shook my head. No, Monica. You destroyed us, but I rebuilt me. And now you get the chance to rebuild you. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but clear. I'm sorry, Garrett, for everything. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I know, I said. And I found it to myself. 2 weeks later, it was her last day at my company. She'd accepted the consulting position, a fresh start in a new direction. Before she left, she came to my office one final time. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing past what I did and remembering who I could be." I stood up, walked around the desk. "I want you to understand something," I said. "I don't forgive you. I probably never will. But I don't hate you either. I'm just indifferent, and that's the best I can offer." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "That's more than I deserve." We shook hands a professional goodbye with no promises of friendship, no false hopes of reconciliation. Just closure. Clean, honest closure. After she left, I stood alone in my office, watching the city lights blink on, one by one. 7 years ago, she'd taken everything me money, my time, my faith in people. But refusing to help her would have meant she still had power over me. By helping her on my terms, I'd proven something crucial. I didn't just survive her betrayal. I transcended it. A year later, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Monica was getting married to Gento, a high school teacher named Daniel. The handwritten note inside made me pause. "Thank you for teaching me what love actually looks like. I finally found someone who sees me for who I am, not what I can offer. You saved my life, Garrett. I hope someday you'll forgive me." I smiled, tore the note in half, and dropped it in the trash. I never went to that wedding. Because forgiveness isn't about the person who hurt you, it's about freeing yourself. And I was already free.